Hello and welcome to the very first episode of UFC by the Numbers. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at all the numbered UFC events, starting with number 1 and working our way all the way through the entire catalog of events. So UFC 1 took place November 12th, 1993 at the former McNichols Sports Arena, also formerly the Pepsi Center, and it's now actually a parking lot for the M-Power Field at Mile High where the Denver Broncos play. So that little piece of MMA history is gone. So the event was put together by Hoyce Gracie and Art Davie. Hoyce Gracie had moved to California in 1978 and started working as an extra in movies and television, but was also teaching jiu-jitsu out of his garage. And in doing so, he had somehow hooked up a role as a technical advisor for the 1987 movie Lethal Weapon, where you can see Mel Gibson famously choking out Gabe Busey with a triangle choke. Art Davie was a business executive and entrepreneur, along with being in the UFC Hall of Fame, the MMA Hall of Fame, and bringing the first ever K1 event to North America. He is also the founding father of X-Arm, a hybrid of arm wrestling and kickboxing, which for some reason never really caught on with the mainstream. The first few UFC events were really based off of the Gracie Challenge matches, which were at the time being held at the Gracie Academy in California. Gracie Challenge matches were an open challenge to anyone wanting to test their style against Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Horian would have them filmed and then do voiceover commentary, breaking down each fight, going through what was happening, and sold these videos through Black Belt magazine. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions about the rule set for UFC 1. I think a lot of people have the idea that there were no rules, it was anything goes, yada yada yada. And it was marketed that way, but there definitely were some rules, and a lot of them are very similar to the ones that we have in the unified rules today of MMA. Each fight was to be contested in 5 minute rounds, just like any championship fight or main event today. Fight could end by KO, TKO, submission, or doctor stoppage, but the referee couldn't stop the fight. There was no biting, no eye gouging, no groin shots permitted. So pretty normal stuff there. A few things that weren't the same though. They didn't have any judges, and if there was no winner after the 5 minute rounds, there was an unlimited overtime of 5 minute rounds. And there was no weight classes, which I think you'd be hard pressed to see in most mainstream organizations today. As for the commentary team, it was a pretty stacked team. Not a lot of commentary experience, but definitely a lot of combat and professional sports experience, that's for sure. You had Bill Superfoot Wallace, Professional Karate Association middleweight champ, Jim Brown, former NFL running back, 3-time MVP and Super Bowl champ with the Cleveland Browns. You had Kathy Long, 1991 Black Belt Magazine Woman of the Year, 18-1 kickboxing record, 2-0 MMA record. Additional analysis was also provided by Rod Machado. No relation at all to the Machado brothers. Rod had actually been training with the Gracies for 10 years prior to this event, but was also a very experienced pilot. And for a number of years, he was also the voiceover artist for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The original post-fight interviewer was Brian Kilmeade. Some people may know him as the co-host of Fox and Friends in the Morning, and for saying some very questionable things throughout his career.
We keep marrying other species and other ethnics.
Do I do what?
Make Kool-Aid.
No, I don't make Kool-Aid.
The Swedes have pure genes.
The original announcer for the event was Rich Goins. Rich was a Denver sports radio personality for many years, from the 90s into the early 2000s. And he famously lived on a billboard for 33 days in the early 90s until the Denver Broncos won their first game of that season.
Rich, you sniveling wimp. If you said you were going to stay up there until they won, I don't care if they don't win until the opener next year. You're up there, pal.
So unknown to most, there actually was a fight before the televised pay-per-view event. Jason Delucia fought Trent Jenkins on what I guess would be considered the undercard, but it was actually an alternate bout. Basically, if someone were to get hurt later on in the tournament, the winner of that fight would be able to step in and take their place. Jason Delucia was a kung fu fighter originally from Boston who had come to LA to try to challenge Steven Seagal to a fight.
And nobody threatens me.
But when he wasn't able to make that happen, he decided to take up the Gracie challenge instead, during which he was subsequently choked out by Hoist Gracie, and then he started to train jiu-jitsu at the Gracie Academy. He had asked for a chance to be included in the UFC tournament and was told that he could be on the alternate bout, and if he won that, he could have a place as an alternate and would be guaranteed a spot in the second UFC tournament. So Trent Jenkins, he ended up retiring with an 0-4 record in MMA, was finishing all of his fights, and unfortunately that's all I really have on Trent. Jason Delucia and Trent Jenkins, the alternate bout of UFC 1. Both guys throwing a lot of kicks. Jason actually lands a real nice head kick. And Jason eventually goes for the takedown and does a real good job of hooking that leg to immobilize Trent and able to take him down. Once they're on the ground, they scramble to a dogfight, but Jason's able to escape around the back, gets both of his hooks in, but crosses his ankles, which is a very rookie mistake, but Trent has no idea how to exploit that. And eventually Jason sinks in the rear naked choke, which he's obviously learned from his time training with the Gracies, and that's it. Jason secures his spot as an alternate in this tournament and is guaranteed a place in the next UFC. So the very first televised UFC fight, Gerard Gordo versus Tila Chuli, sumo versus Savat. Gerard Gordo, 8-time consecutive Dutch Kyokushin karate champion, and that's really all the nice things I have to say about him. He had apparently bit Hoist in the finals of this event,
I bit this in his ear.
and in Valley Tudo Japan 95, he blinded Yuki Nakai by eye gouging him. In a losing effort, he lost via heel hook. And he gave a very suspect Nazi-style salute to mark his octagon debut. So you can decide for yourself, but I'm not a fan. Tila Chuli. This is his only MMA fight. He was a professional sumo wrestler, but a lot more people really know him as Taylor Willie, playing Chemo on Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
What are you doing here?
And has a reoccurring role as, I'm going to definitely butcher this name, Kamikona Tupuloa on Hawaii 5-0, and he also reprises the same character on Magnum P.I. and MacGyver. It's not a bad career trajectory from starting on TV, getting your face kicked in, to ending up having a pretty successful career in film and television. And here we go, the very first fight of the UFC. It's actually kind of a really interesting matchup here. The pure size of Chuli and the range of Gordo, just circling around the ring a little bit, and then eventually Tila tries to go in for the bull rush. Looks like he tried for a single leg or something, but Gordo just pushes him down, takes a measured step back, and just launches that ruthless kick to the face. Chuli's out for a second, just face first into the cage, he's out, and Gordo just cracks him with that right hand. Just busts Chuli's eye and knocks his teeth out of his head. Just a real indication of what everyone is going to be in for and what this new organization is really about. You hear Kathy Long and Bill Wallace talking about the tooth that just flew over to the commentary table.
Right there, now watch. Bam, that's a right leg roundhouse kick right to the face. That's where the tooth came out. Kathy, did you catch that tooth?
No, I think it's under the table here.
Oh, okay, well, I'm going to find it later and I get $1 for it.
Kevin Rozier, professional kickboxer, he had a 66-8 record with 66 knockouts. He was a 3-time World Kickboxing Association Super Heavyweight Champion, International Sport Karate North American Super Heavyweight Champion. He was coming off 2 losses in professional competition coming up to this event, and he was effectively inactive for 3 years coming up to this event, and it really kind of showed in his physique. Zane Frazier, 4th degree black belt in American Kempo Karate, 2-time California State Karate Champion, and 2-time International Karate Champion. So for me, one of the most interesting stories about UFC 1 was actually how Frazier got his spot on the card. Horian had apparently seen him get into an altercation with Frank Dukes.
Hoist Gracie came out to the U.S. World Karate Championships back in July of '93, and I was fighting for a DRACA World Heavyweight Championship. I got an altercation with Frank Dukes. On top of him beating him up, LAPD kind of came in and put us both in handcuffs. And that's when Art Davey asked me, he said, "Are you Zane Frazier?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're in the UFC." That's kind of how I got in.
Now, Frank Dukes, for those of you who don't know, is the man who the movie Bloodsport is based off of. The man who went down to Hong Kong and fought in the Kumite, whose whole life story ended up being a big lie, allegedly. Zane Frazier and Kevin Rozier. This was a really good fight. I mean, maybe not compared to today's standards, but it was a great fight. These guys really just went at it. In the opening bit, Rozier lands some overhand rights, gets him down to the ground, has him in a turtle position, but just obviously there's no control. He has no ground game whatsoever. A lot of really good dirty boxing, in close in the clinch, short punches landed, uppercuts, knees. Not the most technical fight. Great uppercuts on the inside from Frazier. And you know, Frazier was using every advantage he could think of. Like, he was grabbing at Rozier's hair, ripping it out, just trying to control the head. This clinch work against the cage is exhausting, especially at altitude in front of who knows how many people on live TV. It's exhausting. You can see Frazier's tired now, hands by his side. Rozier is eventually able to get him up against the cage and just starts clubbing him down with these right hands until he's just curled up in a ball on the floor against the octagon cage. And Rozier hits him with this Robert De Niro style heel stomp from Goodfellas. Thank God he misses the second one, and Frazier's corner throws in the towel, and that's it. Rozier moves on. Hoyce Gracie. He was a black belt at age 18 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and was one of the original participants in the Gracie challenge matches. When anyone would step up, it would be either himself or one of his brothers that would take up the challenge. So he was very used to this kind of combat. He was also definitely not the family's first choice. That was most likely Hicks and Gracie. However, I believe there was a bit of infighting within the Gracies, and eventually Helio, the father of all the brothers, had to step in and make a decision, and he had decided that it would be Hoyce that would go on and represent the family. Art One Glove Jimerson. He was 1983 Golden Gloves middleweight champ. He did have a decent boxing record, 33-17. This was his only MMA fight, and he was kind of brutally embarrassed. And the third fight, the introduction of Hoyce Gracie. Hoyce coming out in the iconic Gracie train. You can see Hicks in there, Hoyler, Helio was on the side there, and then you've got Horian in the tuxedo somewhere around the side here. Art with the one boxing glove on, for whatever reason. That front leg kick that the Gracies are famous for, and the Gracie self-defense system is going to be very effective in these first few UFCs. The crowd is already getting restless because they've seen so much action already, from Chuli getting his teeth kicked out to Frazier getting his head stomped. It's been a pretty action-packed night so far. But as you can see there, Hoyce faked that front kick that he was using to Art's leg, shot in with the double leg. Hoyce takes Art down right into mount and immediately grapevines both of his legs. Very immobilizing to the guy on bottom, especially if you have no idea what's going on. You don't know how to defend against it. You've never felt anything like that before. And a lot of people give Art a real bad name here. They're saying he just tapped from mount. There was no strikes. There was no anything. He is exerting a lot of energy right now trying to get out of here. He is doing somewhat the right thing though, trying to get onto his hip. He's controlling Hoyce's posture, controlling his head, not letting him get up to land these strikes. But he is also panicking. Anyone who has ever done any sort of grappling, if you for your first class had to go against a high level black belt, it would be terrifying for you as well. You'd probably tap from pressure or from just losing all of your air, just like Art did. And that's it. Hoyce moves on to the next round. Doesn't take any damage, expels very little energy. On to the next one. Ken Shamrock. He was the inaugural Pancrase champion. He had actually won that title just 6 weeks before the original UFC One. Now, say what you will about the events in Japan at that time. I'm sure lots of them were works and all that kind of stuff, but there was some realness to it as well. Ken didn't really believe the event was what it said it was going to be. He had assumed that it was just going to be another pro wrestling gig. And when they got there, they were going to tell him, all right, this is how it goes down. You're going to take a loss. You're going to take a loss. Ba, 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 ba.
And we flew to Denver 3 days before the event. In my mind going, this ain't going to happen. They're going to come to us and tell us this is how it works. All the way up until the fight actually happened. Gerard Gordo football kicks him in the face when he goes down. He hits him with the right hand. He goes to the ground all fours. The people from that point on, you could not deny what this new sport was or new event was. It was real.
Pat Smith. In 1993, he was the #1 ranked heavyweight kickboxer in North America and #5 internationally. Was also the 1993 Enshin Karate Tournament champion and would actually go on to have a pretty long MMA career. Ken Shamrock versus Pat Smith in the final preliminary bout of the evening. Shamrock is very well versed in wrestling and full contact fighting, despite what many people may think about the fights in Japan. Ken going for the early takedown, but then switches it to a body lock and gets a beautiful takedown off of it. Now, despite what we had seen in the fight with Rozier and Frazier, you can see Smith actually does have a little bit of ground game here. He understands to keep the guard closed. He's controlling the head position of Ken, controlling his posture, and he's even throwing some of those heel strikes to the kidneys, which are now illegal, by the way.
That's fucking illegal.
For some reason. Ken was landing some effective ground and pound at certain points. Smith does open up the guard to start looking for either a submission or to possibly kick Ken away. But when he does, Ken immediately grabs a hold of that leg and drops back for a straight ankle lock and then starts turning it into a heel hook. You can see Smith really doesn't have any idea what to do here. He's just lying on his back and just throwing his leg in an axe kicking motion and then trying to attack the feet of Ken, but he's lost. He's not really too sure what to do. And there it is. Pat Smith taps the heel hook and Ken Shamrock moves on to the next round. So the semifinals are set. Gerard Gordo and Kevin Rozier, Ken Shamrock and Hoyce Gracie. Gordo, making his second ring appearance of the evening, decides again to not go with the Savate salute, probably for the best. Gordo broke his hand in the first fight against Chuli, and you can see there it's very swollen. Gordo also had one of Tila Chuli's teeth stuck in his foot, which is not only painful but super nasty. Kevin starts by taking the center of the octagon and tries to push Gordo back, but Gordo just starts landing these really hard leg kicks. Rozier tries to return one of his own, but the leg kicking in North American kickboxing was non-existent. Gordo finally gets him up against the cage, lands a big right hand. Rozier goes down. He takes a lot of punishment, a lot of elbows, a lot of punches. Gordo hits him with a vicious elbow near on the back of the head. Rozier goes down. He's lying there. Gordo just stomps him to the ribs, and Rozier just taps. And Gordo moves on to the finals. He will face the winner of Ken Shamrock and Hoyce Gracie. So semifinal number 2, Ken Shamrock versus Hoyce Gracie. Gracie once again coming out with the Gracie train, and Shamrock coming out with the Pancrase contingent in his corner. So the fight starts. Gracie immediately tries to go for that front leg side kick, fakes it and tries to shoot for a takedown. Ken makes a hard sprawl, a good sprawl. A scramble ensues. They both get back up to their feet, and Hoyce gets the fight to the ground by pulling guard and is eventually able to sweep Ken. Nearly ends up in mount. Hoyce lands a couple of palm strikes. Ken looks like he tries to attack a leg, but eventually Hoyce just gets him to turtle when Ken turns to his knees, and Hoyce sinks in with the rear naked choke. Ken taps. Somehow the referee doesn't see it, even though he's right there, and Ken almost put a hole in the mat with the force he was tapping with. But yeah, he tapped. He obviously tapped. And Hoyce is moving on to the finals. Hoyce and Gerard Gordo. So this is it, the finals. You started with 8, and these are the final 2. Gordo and Gracie. Hoyce coming out. And for the last time tonight, the Gracie train. And again, no Savate salute. Just the double fist pump and the prayer. Gordo's hand is probably a real mess right now. Hoyce has by far had the easiest run of everything so far, taking the least amount of damage. Definitely the fresher fighter going into this. And here we go. Gordo takes the center of the octagon. Hoyce throws that front leg side kick and turns it into a takedown. Gordo defends it. Eventually Gracie gets him up against the cage. There's a little bit of clinch work here. Gracie eventually gets double underhooks and sweeps out that leg from Gordo, takes him right down to mount. From here, Gracie lands a headbutt or two, eventually gets Gordo to turn, takes his back. At some point in the scrambling or up against the cage, Gordo bit Hoyce.
I bit this in his ear.
Hoyce eventually gets the rear naked choke, and he does not let go. He knows Gordo is tapping. Gordo taps the ground. Gordo taps him. Gordo taps with both hands. Hoyce is relentless. He's not letting go. A little punishment for the bite. And that's it. That's how it all went down. Hoyce Gracie, first UFC champion. 3 submission wins. Couldn't have got any better for the Gracies. And this was it. This was the historic event that kicked off what is now the global phenomenon that is the UFC and mixed martial arts as a whole. I mean, this event really opened, I think, everyone's eyes to what martial arts actually is and what it can be and what combat and what fighting actually is. And that's it. UFC by the numbers, episode 1. In the books. I really enjoyed putting this together, and I think I'm really going to enjoy doing the rest of them as well. It's going to be a lot of fun going back and rewatching a lot of fights that I forgot about, remembering a lot of the fighters I forgot about, and I really hope you guys like it and come back for the next one. Peace.